Coronation Street tease that a hush falls over the cobbles as dusk settles, the street's familiar hum stilled by the weight of recent revelations. Beneath the lamplight, worn brick facades bear silent witness to secrets laid bare and loyalties tested. It is here, against the backdrop of everyday life, a hurried shop run, a whispered conversation at Roy's Rolls, that the most extraordinary acts of courage and forgiveness begin to blossom. From the moment Mick Barton retreated from his life among neighbors and friends, the community braced itself for the worst. Rumors swirled of a man lost to his own rage, a killer marking time in a cell, distancing himself from humanity. Yet it was Sally Metcalf, with her steely compassion and quiet resolve, who bridged the chasm between monster and man. Sally's arrival at the prison gates was unassuming, a battered tote bag over one shoulder, a stack of letters tucked inside, each one stained with her careful script. But as she stepped into the visiting room, time seemed to slow. Mick's gaze, once defiant, immovable, flickered with recognition. He rose, uncertain, as Sally approached. The room held its breath. Her opening words were simple. "Mick, I know you're scared." There was no tremor in her voice, only the firm steadiness of someone who had faced her own doubts and fears. She spoke of loss, of loneliness, of the burden of past mistakes, drawing parallels to her own darkest days. As dignitaries gathered to watch a play unfold, the other inmates and guards quietly retreated, leaving only two figures at the heart of a drama far more compelling than any staged performance. "Every goodbye has a meaning," Sally said, placing one hand on the cool glass barrier that separated them. "But not every goodbye needs to be final." Her eyes shone with empathy as she recounted the small kindnesses Mick had shown to Lou and the children before everything fell apart. Fixing Brody's scraped knee, the way he once read bedtime stories to Kit when the world felt too heavy for a child. These recollections, shared with tenderness, became daggers at Mick's conscience. For the first time, Mick's facade cracked. The man who had believed himself beyond forgiveness felt something extraordinarily human stir within him, remorse. Softly, he whispered back, voice thick. "Sally, I don't deserve your words." And yet, at her insistence, he listened as she traced the outline of his regrets and regrets still unspoken. When she told him that the bravest act he could yet perform was to surrender, not to the authorities, but to his own better nature, Mick's hardened exterior finally gave way. In that moment of victory, Sally achieved what years of legal argumentation and familial pleas could not. Mick Barton, the man whose hands had spilled so much blood, laid down his defenses and surrendered unconditionally to the possibility of redemption. As the visiting room doors closed behind Sally, neighbors on the street exhaled collectively, as if a weight had lifted from the very air between the terraced houses. Meanwhile, beyond the prison walls, another heart was wrestling with its own betrayals. Lou Jenkins, overwhelmed by the fallout of Mick's crimes and her own series of missteps, had reached her breaking point. Tavern arguments, furtive calls, and sleepless nights had left her spirit tattered. The children, Brody and Kit, wondered why their parents seemed distant, why the laughter had died in the house that once rang with play. It was Sally who noticed first. During a chance meeting by the Rover's return doorway, she found Lou hunched over, shoulders trembling beneath her coat. Gently, Sally offered her presence and an unflinching ear. Lou's story tumbled out in fragments, mistakes driven by fear, choices made in desperation, the crushing guilt of letting her children down. Sally did not judge. Instead, she proposed a solution both radical and pragmatic: "Let me help." In so saying, she promised to care for Brody, to feed them breakfast before school, to tuck them safely into bed, and to fill their evenings with stories of hope rather than despair. "I can't fix everything you've been through," Sally admitted, "but I can make sure they have stability while you find your own way back." It took days for Lou to accept. Pride and shame waged war in her mind as she grappled with surrendering her maternal duties to another. Yet, watching Sally braid Shanice va Joni hair one morning, smiling as she taught Brody how to play a new card game, Lou felt the first glimmer of relief in months. When she finally nodded her consent, it was not defeat she felt, but a tentative spark of possibility. Perhaps, by letting go of control, she could rebuild the life she had fractured. Under Sally's attentive care, the household began to breathe again. Mornings were filled with laughter over toast and cereal, evenings with bedtime stories read in Sally's melodic cadence. Lou, in turn, attended counseling sessions arranged by Sally's network of friends, confronting traumas she had long buried. Each session peeled away another layer of fear and guilt, revealing strengths she had forgotten she possessed. As this quieter drama unfolded, Mick Barton's own transformation began within the prison walls. Stripped of freedom and routine, he was forced to confront the wreckage of his life. During solitary reflection, he replayed memories of Brody's laugh, the tender look in Joni's eyes, the shared birthdays and Christmas mornings, moments he had taken for granted. In a letter penned with trembling hand, Mick acknowledged that blood ties did not define a father's love, and confessed his failures in guiding Brody through life's milestones. "I'm sorry," he wrote. "I'm sorry, I wasn't there to teach you how to ride a bike, or to cheer you on in school plays. I'm sorry I let anger become the language between us. But know this, when I think of you, I see a brave young man, capable of kindness and truth." That apology was more than words on paper. It was a turning point in Mick's journey. He urged Brody to build a life separate from the shadows of his parents. "Embrace the world with honesty," he advised. "Let Kit's laughter be your guide. And when in doubt, choose compassion over fear." News of Mick's heartfelt missive rippled through the street. Some scoffed, what good could come of remorse offered from behind bars? Others wept, reminded of their own lost chances at reconciliation. But the prevailing sentiment was cautious hope. If Sally's influence could soften Mick's heart, perhaps healing was possible for the wider community as well. Brody, reeling from the revelation that Mick was not his biological father, found himself suspended between anger and grief. He had joined the ill-fated robbery, believing he was fighting for a future with the man he saw as his dad. Now, he faced not only the legal repercussions, charges that would lead him toward a harsh political rehabilitation program, but the emotional fallout of identity shattered. When he approached Kit, seeking solace, he recoiled. The innocence of a child's refusal cut deeper than any verdict could. Gossip swirled, Lou's troubles, Mick's violence, Brody's betrayal. In the alleyways and living rooms, the neighbors whispered that the Bartons were cursed, their troubles passed from one generation to the next. Yet Sally refused to let despair take root. She continued to champion Brody, visiting him during pretrial proceedings, bringing him books on personal growth and plans for community service. Slowly, a new narrative emerged. One not of inherited sin, but of conscious choice. Brody, inspired by Mick's apology and Sally's unwavering faith in his abilities, began to attend group therapy sessions alongside Lou. There, he confronted the self-doubt that had driven him to crime. By sharing his story, he discovered that vulnerability could be a strength, not a weakness. As Part 1 draws to a close, the cobbled street stands on the cusp of renewal. Mick's fate remains uncertain, prison bars still separate him from the world he once knew, but his soul has taken a step toward redemption. Lou, once adrift, now navigates her path with professional support and a network of friends. Brody and Kit, under Sally's guardianship, rediscover the simple joys of childhood and the power of honest connection. In the hush before the next chapter, Coronation Street holds its breath. The characters we thought we knew have been reshaped by tragedy and forgiveness. And as the lights dim on this first act, one question lingers. Can true transformation endure once the doors of confinement swing open? The answer awaits in the unfolding streets of Weatherfield, and in the hearts of those who dare to forgive.